people of film. My name is Jake Berlin, and I'm here with Apocalypse Movies to do a review, a spoilers review of Alien Covenant. That's right. I just got out of the film a few hours ago, and I felt like doing a complete spoilers discussion about this movie. There's no way I can talk about it positively or negatively without spoiling anything. So you have been warned. If you have not seen Alien Covenant, I would not watch any further. Bookmark it, come back to it after you have seen the film, and we will definitely be discussing this movie going forward. So, Alien Covenant, the kind of, sort of, not really sequel, reboot if you want, to Prometheus, Ridley Scott's true reboot of the Alien franchise, the prequel movies. This is the next step in the prequel, I guess you could say, series of movies for the Alien franchise. Goes in a completely different direction, kind of blows off the whole Prometheus ending and whatnot a little bit. There's a little bit in there, and we'll talk about that for sure. But yes, Alien Covenant takes place 10 years after the events of Prometheus, follows a completely new ship and crew. It is the colony ship called Covenant, and so they're in space. They're going to a new planet, a new destination to start a colony of humans, a new world, and they come across a completely new planet that they never even discovered for a colony that looks like it fits the atmosphere, location, has water, beautiful land, all this kind of stuff for the human race. Excuse me. And so they decide to take a trip and see what happens. It's also because they got a little ghostly message from none other than Dr. Elizabeth Shaw, who is played by Noomi Rapace in Prometheus. A little bit of connection there. So yeah, and just kind of getting right into it, because there's a lot to talk about. I don't want to take all your time, but this movie, I was very, very interested going forward, or interested in it from the beginning, I should say. And the trailers, the first one, okay, not great, but not terrible, kind of that in-between stage. The next trailer, really, really strong. Looks like it's kind of going back to that horror aspect that this franchise is known from. Ridley Scott might have been realized, like, hey, maybe it's a good thing to kind of go back to what the roots are, create a new story and characters, but go back to what it was. So on paper, it was fantastic. The product, not so great. Reasons being, we'll get into that, but I want to start with a little bit of positives. And there are a few, maybe a little bit more negatives than positives on my end anyway, but one of the positives, which I think is almost with every movie he's in, Michael Fassbender. I was interested to see how his character would go forward. I knew that he was playing a separate android, or a evolution of his previous android, you can say. But he's good. He plays these different kind of accents, and he has to have that robotic feel to him, which is interesting because he's also married, or is dating the person who's probably the best at robotics, Alicia Vikander from Ex Machina. But back to Covenant, he's very strong, and it almost seems like a very simple role, but sometimes those roles are always so hard to play because they are so simple, and that's what made it so good. He's always fun to see. He plays a different role. He always brings a certain elegance and intensity factor to a movie, and he definitely brought that to this one. So that is definitely one of the big parts of the movie for me that I liked, especially because there were two different versions of him in the movie. He was kind of playing off of each other, or playing off of himself, I guess you can say. So yeah, that's definitely one of the positives for me for Covenant. One of the bigger things that I was worried about in this movie was the connection to Prometheus, and would it, explain it, or go into detail, or just kind of, pass by over it slightly. I kind of do a combination of it, and some of it worked, most of it didn't work. One of the things that I did enjoy, once I figured out, or once it was really revealed what was going on, is the Dr. Elizabeth Shaw ending, I guess you can say. And spoilers again, you shouldn't be watching this, but we're going to talk about it, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But David explains to his other self, Walter, that there was some kind of virus that released from the Prometheus ship, the alien ship they were on. They killed the population, and they lost control of the ship, and Dr. Elizabeth Shaw died in the crash. And then not so long after, we figure out, it's revealed that that's not the case. David released the vaccine or the virus. He killed the population on purpose, and he had actually been experimenting on Elizabeth Shaw. He killed her, and experimenting on her. And spoiler again, he is the reason why aliens exist. And we saw the version in Prometheus at the end, what it looked like, but David, Michael Fassbender's android from Prometheus, is the creator of the alien we know and love from the 80s. The original movie, 70s and 80s, the originals. David is the creator. He spliced and diced all kinds of DNA and, you know, zoology type stuff, and he created the alien. He wanted to create his baby, and his reasoning was because he believed humans needed to die, mankind needed to perish, gone, bye bye, and because that we ruined our own world and whatnot. So, but him experimenting on Shaw makes sense because it's like in the movie David in Prometheus, David is just, he's working on his own. He tries to kill everyone. He's the reason why everything kind of happened in that movie. Yet Dr. Elizabeth Shaw is like, hey, let me grab your head and take you with me. Maybe I need you for certain things, yes. But she decided to give him a body again, and then obviously he's going to turn on her and do his own things because, as he says in the movie, he was built to create, and he's creating. And so I love the way that explanation happened. It's very interesting. It does work, it doesn't work. It depends on your opinion. But I love the way that, you know, she died, he killed her, he has been experimenting on her. She was the very first host of these aliens. They show her opened up corpse and all this kind of stuff. Very, very cool stuff. Yes, that's definitely one of the good positives of this movie. Another one would be, well, kind of what I mentioned, but David creating the xenomorphs, he's the reason why. It's a very cool element of this story and this mythology, I guess you can say. Now we know where the aliens come from. They're not just a biological being that was created from something, or, you know, a hybrid of something from a distant world or whatever it is. They were engineered, and David's the reason why. And it's, you know, it's the cycle of life. It's a big giant circle. Weyland and Prometheus created David. David created the xenomorphs, and the xenomorphs are now hunting down the humans, which David wants to kill. And it's just a big cycle, which is very, very cool if you think about it. So that's definitely another positive. And finally, the next positive, which may be the most obvious, is the look of the movie. Ridley Scott always has a really good flair for cinematography and look and camera styles, or camera point of views and whatnot. And that's once again with this movie. It's pretty beautiful to look at it. It's a bleak look. It's a dark look. Not very many colors. Lots of black and whites and in betweens and whatnot. And yeah, I just love the way it's kind of like almost glossed over in this certain color. And so it's definitely another positive. It attracts the eyes, which is what you want from a movie. But as I said earlier, negatives took over this film for me, and they are overwhelming. And the first one I can say, you know, right off the bat, is I was pretty much just bored. It took a long time to get going. I understand why they wanted to tell the story, but they did that in Prometheus, and they started. It's almost like a same thing. A ship crew meet the crew, find out where they're going, they land, discover this place, all this shit starts to happen, and so it was just boring, and it took so long to get going, and it almost felt like we were rehashing everything that happened, but in a more alien way. And so it took me out of the film. It wasn't as engaging anymore. I was very excited going in because I wanted to see classic Alien and carnage, and there was definitely carnage and gore, which is a good thing, but there wasn't really that horror factor, and I wasn't really scared to see anything, and which is what I was looking for, is a lot of gunfire and figuring out stuff and running and walking and running away again and all this kind of stuff. I love seeing the baby alien pop out of stomachs. That's cool because that's classic, but it was just boring to me. It was bleak, and it wasn't engaging, and so it's probably the biggest positive or negative for me, other than the last one we're going to talk about. But yeah, so go in expecting a little bit of a slower story, something that doesn't take as long or takes a long time to get going. Next is, and this is always one of the worst, and it happens so often, but there was just no character development. I didn't care about the characters. I cared about Michael Fassbender and his David and Walter, but because I know that they have alternative motives in their androids, but I was bummed by the characters we had, like Catherine Waterston. Catherine Waterston's character, she was cool, but Ridley Scott's trying to make a Ripley knockoff, and it just didn't work out too well because she ends up trusting the android again, and for the same reason Noomi Rapace's character did in Prometheus, and Billy Crudup's character kind of just bland, and he gets a good send off in the movie with a little alien popping out of his stomach, but I just didn't care about him. Some of them go really quick. Others that we're supposed to care for, they die. We're like, oh, move on, next one up, and so it's unfortunate, and so especially because we know what Ridley Scott can do with characters. We saw The Martian and Matt Damon and all those characters. We've seen what he does with aliens, and so it's a bummer. But I know that he's trying to recreate something that has already been done, when instead of just creating something completely new, like just do something new instead of trying to rehash something that we loved so many years ago. You know what I mean? So that's definitely another negative. And then the biggest one that I want to talk about, that is probably the most overwhelming, that pretty much just topped this movie from being okay to like I just didn't care for it, is the ending, and it's the Prometheus connection and like all that kind of stuff. But the ending, so there's a big sequence, and so we find out the big reveal, the big twist. David's been creating these xenomorphs. He's the reason why everything's happening. He brought these people here to have more test subjects, you could say. And so sequences happen, people die. We find out that all this stuff happens. Michael Fassbender's Walter, Michael Fassbender's David, they go up against each other. And so Walter's the good one, he's the more evolution one, he's the better version, and they're fighting, all this stuff happens. Walter's got the final blow. David stops him, he makes him to hesitate about having a conversation with him. And the camera cuts, and we don't know what happens. It's clearly obvious, and there's for multiple reasons, which we'll get going forward. But and the camera cuts. It's outside to Catherine Waterston's character and the other character, the main character of the guy. But from there on out, it like topples down for me anyway, because I know what's going on. Danny McBride, that's his name. Sorry, Danny McBride's character comes down. He's trying to save him. The two main human characters jump on the ship, along with Michael Fassbender. All this stuff happens. We think he's Walter until they get up to there's this big action sequence of the final xenomorph, and then they get up to the main ship. Everything's all dandy. Everything acting like Walter. Everybody's going to sleep. We're good. We're moving on to our next planet. We're gonna go colonize this planet now, until the two final human characters, which happen because there's a giant action sequence where I think his name is Lope or something. He ends up having a xenomorph in his stomach, hatches on the ship, all hell breaks loose. Two more characters die in the shower, whoever, and making out all this stuff, which is like the most obvious reason for people to die in a movie. Danny McBride, Catherine Waterston kill the xenomorph by sending him off into a space vacuum. Who knew? That happened in the first like a dozen Alien movies, I think. That happens, and Walter is over the comm, helping him, shutting doors, sending him where he needs to go, the xenomorph, that is. So we think he's Walter the entire time. Most of the people, it's blatantly clear this guy isn't Walter, for reasons we'll get into. And then it happens, they're going to the new planet, they go back into cryo, Danny McBride goes down, he's happy, good to go. Catherine Waterston gets into her cryo, Walter is going to put her to sleep. They talk a little bit, and then she says something and catches him in a lie, and she realizes that he's David, and then David's on the ship. He's got all these colonists on the ship where he can basically breed xenomorphs, like 2,000 of them if he wants to. But the reason why it doesn't make sense, and it's clear, but in the movie they explain how the new version of David, which is Walter, can heal himself. He's a better version. He's smarter. He's faster. Like all this kind of stuff. And they show it by, David kills Walter. His heel and his wound heals. Well, if you watch, there's multiple scratches on David's face and whatnot, and so you're wondering, like, okay, the big twist is supposed to be this guy's Walter. We're not supposed to know until the end. It's supposed to be a giant reveal, giant twist going forward in the next Alien movie. But the second you see him on screen and you think back, wait a second, I thought this guy's supposed to heal. And they even show a scene where his wound heals, like his neck heals up. He's actually dead. He's gooing stuff from him, and then he wakes up in the next scene and he's kicking ass again. But if you think about it, David doesn't heal. You should know right away this is David. And earlier in the movie, Catherine Waterston's character Daniels stabbed David with a nail through his chin. There's no hole in David's head. And so how did that happen? Is he healing like Walter now? He still has scratches on his face. So why does that make sense? The big reveal, it sucks. There's nothing to it. And going forward, you're like, okay, cool. Now it's David. What happens now? So that's for me anyway. I know I'm kind of shitting on it, but it's like, get this stuff right. Like, it needs to make sense. It didn't make sense. It kind of just made me feel bummed out. And the ending, it made the ending worse. Like, there was no giant reveal or giant twist. The action was cool, yes, but Ridley Scott's been talking about 2 or 3 more Alien movies going in for the prequels, and we haven't gotten anywhere, and there's not really any progress. Like, I feel like it was just another slow step on like a haunted staircase, and it's a bummer because Covenant looks so good in the trailers, and people are kind of liking it and saying it kind of gets back to the Alien roots, and it's almost a rehash of Prometheus in a way. And yeah, there's a big twist reveal for a lot of people, but if you really look at the details, it just doesn't make sense, and so it's kind of a bummer. And I'm not turned off on the Alien franchise at all. Like, I'm hoping that things kind of get better for this franchise because it's one of the better ones, the franchise that is, and I want to know kind of leading into the original Alien movie what goes on, and we now know where xenomorphs come from, but how do the xenomorphs get to where they are in this movie, or how do they get to, I think it's what, L223 or L224 or whatever it is. And so it's been 2 movies, we haven't gotten anywhere. He wants to do 1 or 2 more prequels. It just seems like it's taking a very, very long time, and so I hope that the next Alien movie is something completely different. I hope that they don't do the Prometheus factor again and completely just go blank slate, forget about the characters, do a completely new story. I want to see what happens, and it's obvious that Ridley Scott wants to follow this David character going forward because he is the creator in a way. But I want to see what happens to Waterston's character. Like, did she die? Or is David keeping her alive just to experiment on her like he did Dr. Shaw? What happened to Danny McBride's character? What happened to the colonists? Like, is everything going forward as planned? Or does something happen? Like, that's kind of what I want to know. But it just seems like every time there's a new Alien movie, there's going to be a completely new thing. And they're just going to kind of rub over what happened previously, like they did in this movie. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see going forward. That brings me to the score for Alien Covenant. And again, everyone should go to the films to get their own opinion, to form their own thoughts on it. This is just what I think. It kind of bummed me out. It was dreary, boring. Some of the action was cool. Like, there was a lot more gore and guts and blood in this movie for sure, which is classic Alien. But that doesn't resolve everything. Like, the story was still very flat. The characters are kind of just like, you don't care about them. So for me, for Alien Covenant, I'm actually gonna give it a 5 out of 10, and it's not what I was expecting at all. Like, I was expecting like a 7 range, something that was good, a little bit above average, not great, just like on the cusp of getting there. But I was just bummed out. I think I don't know if it had to do with my expectations or not, but it was just, it's not that it was uninteresting. It was just a little bit, unfulfilling, I guess you can say, and so that's kind of unfortunate for me. Again, I'm not turned off on the Alien franchise at all. I think someone can get this right. I don't know if that's Ridley Scott. He might need to move on from these movies, or just like sit down and create something completely new, something fresh, instead of trying to go back to what has been good in the past. So yeah, again, Alien Covenant, 5 out of 10. Hopefully, if you have not seen this movie, you did not watch this because I spoiled the living hell out of it. I am Jake Berlin with Apocalypse Movies. You can find me at apocalypsemovies.com every day. Twitter, Instagram, at Qui-Gon Jake. That is with 2 N's. Make sure you head down to the comments. Let us know what you thought of Alien Covenant. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What are the reasons why? Are you looking forward to what's going on? What the hell do you think that ending means for going forward? Make sure you give us a share, like, subscribe. We super appreciate it. You comment, we comment back. We have a great conversation about it. Do not forget to head over to apocalypsemovies.com either. And until next time, I will see you guys later.